I have met the enemy, and he is us. Or to put it another way, how do you fight the deep state? How do you win a war against the deep state when you are a part of it, if only by accident instead of by design? Hey, everybody, I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott, and this is Right Angle, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Gents, we've been watching this trade war brew between us and China and Japan and Europe and all the rest, where President Trump, and I'm not arguing one way or the other on any particular issue or tariff, but President Trump has the legal authority to impose these tariffs on various goods coming in from overseas, and that power, according to the Constitution, belongs to Congress. But Congress wrote a law saying that, well, we're going to let the president make those decisions for us. And believe it or not, this is all a part of the deep state in the sense that the executive branch has accrued, sometimes by accident, sometimes by design, enormous powers that were really never meant for it. Scott, it's been said, I guess, that we have an imperial presidency. And the Oval Office has fought over so desperately because it's accrued all of those powers. And what I want you to do is to tell us what the executive office, what the executive branch is really supposed to look like.
Well, there's a willingness on the part of the legislature for a couple of reasons to abdicate their responsibility and delegate their powers, not just to the executive office directly, but to the whole raft of agencies that are associated with the executive office. And so, the amount of law that Congress writes is tiny in proportion to the number of rules and regulations promulgated by unelected bureaucrats who work for these agencies that have, appointed heads and then hired people under them. And most of what we know of as the kinds of limitations of law that apply to us in this country are not as a result directly of legislative actions. I mean, ultimately, these powers are supposed to balance each other out. Yeah. But that can't work if the legislature won't take its responsibility. And the reason why Congress would want to delegate its powers to the president is twofold. One is so that the president can be blamed. And the other is that, lawmaking is hard and it takes, it takes effort and you have to reach compromise. And I don't know how long it's going to take, if ever, when the American people get sick of this game that the two major political parties are playing, where they basically blame each other for their failure to accomplish anything substantive. But I think James Madison is at a high level of rotation in his grave because of the fact that he was a process guy. The whole Constitution is a framework of government that's designed to lay out the processes and the enumerated powers of each branch, not to get down to the nitty-gritty of what each one's going to do on a day-to-day basis, but to basically set them against each other. And if you delegate your authority, legislature, to the executive, then you are not set against the executive. There is no check, there is no balance, and there's no proper constitutional framework anymore. The beautiful thing about this is that the solution is easy because the powers that are enumerated for the Congress have never been taken away from them. They've been voluntarily given them away. So the next time you talk to your Republican congressman back at your town hall meeting, ask him, when are you going to take those powers back? When are you going to restore the proper constitutional balance? Don't give me lip service to the Constitution all the time when you're not willing to do the basic, fundamental, functional reality of the framework of the Constitution.
Boy, that was well said. Bill, here's what concerns me. Barack Obama's legacy turned out to be written in disappearing ink on sands and high winds because he couldn't get what he wanted through a Republican Congress, or at least not much of the time. And so he famously, went to his pen and his phone, and well, he had the huge executive branch to listen to him and to read what he wrote with that pen and to take those phone calls. So Donald Trump comes into office in 2017, and within about a year, he wiped that Obama legacy away. So my concern is that the next Democratic president, if most of Trump's accomplishments come from just winging it in the executive branch, that the next Democratic president is going to come along and just sweep all that away as if it never happened, just like Trump did to Obama. Is that a genuine concern?
tactically it's a concern, but on a strategic level, the entire idea of executive orders is essentially rule by king. It's a dictator. He dictates what he wants to happen, and if he can get the Congress to rubber stamp it, then it looks better, doesn't smell as much. But if they don't do it the way he wants them to do it, then he simply does it anyway. That's a dictatorship. That's what it is. It's by definition a dictatorship. The whole idea of executive orders, as we've said before, was designed to save a little time so that Congress didn't have to meet and approve legislation to increase the number of White House aides from 3 to 6, right? This is essentially what it was designed for, little housekeeping chores. And like everything else, it's gotten out of control. And it's gotten out of control because it's in the interests of progressives to get it out of control. I know Scott is he's such a fair-minded guy. I admire him so much. But seriously, it is the progressives leading the charge. God knows there's enough Republicans going along with it because it lines their pockets and gives them more power. But essentially, the progressive agenda is so anti-human and so anti-sense that it cannot be passed through a Congress of the people's representatives. It has to be passed in other ways, for their own good, of course. So 2 ways you can do that are have the president use illegal powers to simply write laws that Congress will not approve. And at that point, Congress should have started impeachment proceedings, regardless of who the president is. Or if they can get 5 people out of 320 million people, if they can get 5 of them to agree with them consistently, and as long as they put them all in black robes and have them sit in a building with big ivory tower, big pillars out front, then they can also govern as dictators, as an oligarchy rather than as a single dictatorship. And all of these are anti-democratic in the fundamental sense of the word, because they are bypassing, we don't live in a democracy, we live in a republic, but the people's representatives are the Congress. And if you cannot get something through the Congress, and you have to go to either the executive branch through executive orders or through the courts through Supreme Court rulings, you have essentially run around the people to get what you want. This is the entire thing that we were trying to fight. I'll just add very quickly, my wife is from Russia, and she's appalled by what she sees here. But she's especially appalled at these personal things at Donald Trump, like at 7-Eleven, they've got like pencil sharpeners where you insert the pencil, you can guess where, and so on. And she says, why do they allow this? Why do they allow this? Why doesn't Trump do something about this? Why doesn't he just stop it? He has all these media lies. Why didn't he just stop it? I said, honey, it's tempting, but it's a trap. That's the trap. Yeah. You know, you have to be able to do these things. And to take command of things is to lose the fact that nobody should really be in command of things. People need a leader. They need the whole purpose of the executive is to understand the fact that the Congress can often be a group of people who are just milling around, watching after their own interests. The executive is supposed to provide some focus, but he doesn't get to override the will of the people. He should be able to persuade half of them, and that's his job. But giving the president power is what progressives do, because they need power concentrated in one person who they can get elected.
Yeah,
and Steve, can I just throw in that Bill hit the heart of the matter there? I mean, the reason why we refer to the president as an executive is because his role is to execute the laws that Congress passes. Bingo. That's what his job is, not to create laws, just like the Supreme Court is supposed to pass judgment on things, not to rule. And when the president is doing his job properly, there was a great columnist from the 1800s who was referring to, I can't remember which president now, but maybe it was Cleveland or somebody. Anyway, was basically saying, his legs were under his desk. His breath was not in anybody's face. His hand was not on anybody's lapel. You know, basically, he sat there and he did his job. And at the end of the day, clocked out and went home. And he didn't have a vast vision for the country or anything like that. He was executing the laws that Congress had passed.
There you
go. I just want to add one thing, because you mentioned deep state. It used to be not only not shocking, it used to be procedure that when a new president came in, everybody was fired, period. Yes. When U.S. Grant becomes president, every single person in the government under the Johnson administration is essentially gone, right? And Grant brings his own people in who he presumably trusts. This guy was his friend when he would do this, fine. Okay. Once the federal government reaches a certain size, it simply becomes unfeasible, and that means the federal government at that point is too big, because you should basically clear the whole thing out. If you have an immortal bureaucracy with a political agenda to help one party and one president when he's in power and do everything they can to stop him when he disagrees with you politically, That's the problem. That's what has to go. That bureaucracy that really runs the country.
Well said again. One of the problems with Hitler and Stalin and Mao is they set the bar too high for tyranny. Tyranny is not just labor camps and barbed wire and firing squads and all the rest. As the founding fathers understood it, tyranny was government making decisions with no checks or balances or input from the people as expressed by their elected representatives. And when we talk about the deep state, what is it? Well, the deep state is almost entirely this bloated executive branch bureaucracy with a few enablers and hangers-on in Congress and on the Supreme Court. And that's it. It's exactly what Bill was just saying. It's this huge, unmovable federal bureaucracy that's not a conspiracy, as somebody said. It's an organism that will fight to defend itself. And that's why you can't fight the deep state from within the executive branch. If you want to beat the deep state, it has to start in Congress. So vote accordingly. We'll see you in November. We'll see what happens. Thanks for watching. That's your right angle on the deep state. Brought to you by the paying members of BillWhittle.com. If you like what you see, please click on over, become a member yourself. We would love to have you be a part of this big project of ours. So we'll see you then. Thanks for watching.